Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Decatur Dish. I'm your host, Decaturish editor and founder Dan Whisenhunt. We are joined today by our friend, local journalist King Williams. King, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I cannot complain. Feeling a little more relieved, a little less stressed, so that's nice. Just moving out of the business ownership realm has been a great thing for me. How have you been?
Besides just like enjoying life and enjoying this wonderful summer, I've just been enjoying just being quiet, and I think that's been a great time for me.
Sometimes quiet is the best way to be. Wanted to talk to you about a few things this week. You're always so active on Twitter. It's I am King Williams still,
Yes.
right? Always so active on Twitter, always so active in the podcast space. We had a couple of things we wanted to ask you about. And the first is, could DeKalb County get its own Serenbe? And I would follow that up with, does DeKalb County need its own Serenbe? Because the homes out there are pretty expensive.
Yeah. So Serenbe, for the folks at home, is a very expensive long-term mixed-use community. It's one of the evolutions in what we've seen in the Metro Atlanta housing market. Serenbe, for those of you who don't know, is in Chattahoochee Hills, which is at the very end of Fulton County. A lot of people, ever since Serenbe was first started about 20 years ago, has really copied different models of what Serenbe has done, has tried to make it better. So if you've seen in nearby Fayette County with Trilith and the former Pinewood Studios, which is now owned by the Cathy brothers of Chick-fil-A, if you even see even Avalon to North Fulton, like that also borrows a lot of the DNA from that. And so a lot of projects across the metro area, including places out in Coweta County, places that you would normally not think about trying to copy Metro Atlanta real estate, have been trying to do their own. And there have been slow proposals to try to build a Serenbe version out in DeKalb County, particularly out in southeast DeKalb County, out near Lithonia and particularly the Lithonia Stone Mountain area or Lithonia Arabia Mountain area.
Isn't the Serenbe thing like a lightning in a bottle situation, though? It feels like it was just a very unique set of circumstances that happened more or less organically. That's going to be kind of hard to replicate. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're completely right, and I completely agree with that. I think the one thing, even when you see like a well-resourced project such as Trilith, they haven't been able to capture that magic because, to what you said, Serenbe started from a local entrepreneur. If you remember Mix in the 90s and that franchise of restaurants, this was already somebody who was in Atlanta, knew about the demographics, knew about the geography, knew so much about it that it's hard to replicate. And their ability to access 1,800 acres of land in Fulton County for a very, very low price, I don't think that can ever happen again. So there's a lot of things that you just can't replicate, right? In addition to just getting people to buy into what they were selling, which is better urbanism and better homes and gardens for people who normally don't like better homes and gardens or better urbanism. So it is hard, but I do think that's the future of real estate in Metro Atlanta. And I think for DeKalb County in particular, there has been a lot of ways to try to rejuvenate it, because outside of like the Brookhaven to East Atlanta corridor, like on the sliver of the western side of DeKalb County, you haven't really seen that type of growth and that type of new activity.
Does the South DeKalb, is that going to make life better to have something like that there? I mean, because it's going to drive up the price of real estate.
I think if you're a homeowner, of course, that makes your life much better. But I think if you're also Lithonia and if you're the city of Stonecrest, you really do need this, because you do need an increase in property value. Stonecrest Mall, which was the gem out there, has not been that gem for a very, very long time, arguably over a decade at this point. And there is a slow but steady matriculation of millennials and Gen Zers out of the county altogether. So when those people grow up, they become of age in college or high school, they're not moving back to their hometowns. So that means they're not investing in it. And so if you're that part of DeKalb County, particularly the southeast quadrant, you really do need something to get it going.
Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about DeKalb County's population for a second. DeKalb County, last I checked, had about 800,000.
Close.
Close. Yeah. What's the total now?
I think it's like 767,
Okay,
768.
so not quite 800.
Yeah.
And we wanted to talk about, when will DeKalb County hit 1 million residents? I am interested in this question as well. I think the county is growing. I don't know if it's going to grow to that level and when that will happen. What's your take on that?
I think this comes, well, one, it came on the heels of Gwinnett County earlier this year, hitting 1 million, being the second county in the state of Georgia to do so. Eventually, I think by 2030, Gwinnett will actually overtake Fulton as the most populous county in the state. But for DeKalb, we really have not seen like that super uptick in growth. We've had around an extra 2,000 or 3,000 people year over year who've grown in the county, which is still good. We're not declining. But for a lot of people, especially those who want to see the county grow, we're always competing with Cobb in some regards. And this is the case of where Cobb has a similar population, but their population seems to be moving about 10 to 20% faster than ours. And if we were to hit 1 million, I think that would be a reflection of where Atlanta's going. Atlanta's supposed to be at 8.6 million people by 2040, according to the Atlanta Regional Commission. And of that, Metro Atlanta is going to account for somewhere around 6 million. So there is a probability that Atlanta gets, particularly DeKalb County, gets around 850 to 875 by 2040. I think unless we have a really high density plan, we don't get to 1 million until maybe 2075, when, that will be like maybe the fourth and final county in the state of Georgia to hit 1 million or more in population.
What dictates that? I mean, what's holding DeKalb County back in terms of its population growth? Is it the watershed? Is it the schools? What's keeping us from matching the pace of a county like Cobb?
Okay, so I don't think watershed as much, but I do think infrastructure is something we should be thinking about. I think when it comes to DeKalb, it was the first county to really build out the suburbs. I know a lot of people think Cobb was, but it was actually DeKalb that built out like the Metro Atlanta suburbs. And so a lot of it, particularly the southwestern quadrant and the southeastern quadrant, are just very low density, and it's already occupied. So you have Memorial Drive is a good example. On Memorial Drive, you have several dozen strip malls and things like that could be housed with people, or new development that are just mostly just, your bargain bin thrift marts and things like that. And that's kind of keeping us from growing, versus Gwinnett, which is, one, it's a much bigger county, but even in their strip mall spaces and their residential space, they're building a variety of homes and a variety of density types that DeKalb just isn't doing right now.
So what kind of challenges will jumping 250,000 people present we talked about infrastructure. What else?
Yeah, so in the case of DeKalb, the infrastructure really is on two sides, one of which is water, right? So right now, we do have some, like most places, we have some issues with water always flooding, and pipes needed to be replaced and maintained. But at an extra 250,000 people, what we really are looking at is how do we build a transit infrastructure that moves. DeKalb County is a transient county, and what that means is a lot of people, they live in DeKalb, but they work outside of DeKalb. And so that would be the impetus to build out not just a more robust transit system within the county, but also one that goes through the other parts out of the county, going into Atlanta, into Gwinnett, and then further east and outside of the county, like to your Newtons and Henry counties to that effect.
So if you're just joining us, this is the Decatur Dish Show. We are talking with local journalist King Williams. I want to talk about a project that is in my backyard. It is the redevelopment of North DeKalb Mall, also known as Lula Hills, is what it will be called. It's going to be a big mixed-use project with apartments and shops and offices. It's a big deal, and they're going to have trails that connect to it. I went to the demolition ceremony a few weeks ago, and it sort of had the air of a state funeral. There were a lot of officials there. Some people were crying. It was strange for a demolition, but a lot of people have emotional attachments to this project. How will that project shape the future of DeKalb County and Central DeKalb in particular? Yeah,
so this actually is a culmination of everything we talked about before. So Lula Hills and it's about 70 acres. This will be the former North DeKalb Mall. So I will say before we get started, no, the AMC will still be there. That AMC is beloved by people for years and years, and so it's still going to be the one thing remaining, and it's still there now. But the Lula Hills development at 70 acres or so, it's a representation of all the things we talked about before. Everyone now wants their own version of a live, work, play community. More specifically, they want one that's in the vein of Avalon, which is from North American Partners, which is a firm here in Atlanta based in Midtown, and formerly headed by Mark Toro, who went to go start his own thing. So Mark Toro is best known for creating and spearheading Atlantic Station and also Avalon in North Fulton. In particular, Mark Toro and now his designs have really become the blueprint of what a lot of successful communities are doing to keep their residents happy and also to attract newer residents, especially would-be homeowners. Those are millennials coming into either their first home or their second home or their family home to stay in their community. So Avalon has had a really good success in North Fulton and attracting a lot of people to stay in North Fulton and help grow out Alpharetta. And so other places across the metro, from Milton to Johns Creek to a couple places, there's 2 places in Coweta County as well that are trying to do a similar thing. Even Trilith, in a lot of regards, further south, is trying to do the same. This is an attempt at saying that North DeKalb and South DeKalb kind of need a new centralized point, because for the most part, South DeKalb, their economic spend goes into Atlanta directly. North DeKalb may go to Brookhaven and may go to Gwinnett. So this is a signal in the marketplace right now that Central DeKalb is back where it's at. Tucker is kind of moving in a complementary space, meaning that they're trying to build up downtown Tucker and their Main Street. And so now Lula Hills will be kind of that complementary piece to all of those things that's happening closer to the city of Atlanta.
What's going to determine whether that project is a success or not? What is the metric you're using?
I think the metric should be a couple things. One of which is occupancy of residents. One of which is the timeline and deliverables, meaning when this project is built, will everything that they said actually happen, and then will it happen on the time they said? And then the third one is, are they able to have a second and third wave of consecutive occupancy? So one of the things we haven't seen right now, this is even Avalon's the only place we've seen right now with that second wave of occupancy has stayed, and they've been able to expand. With Lula Hills, we're going to have to see, because you still have neighbors competing, such as like Tucker and Brookhaven and the city of Atlanta proper, and whatever's going on in East Atlanta and Decatur. So we're going to see after that first wave of development, when it first opens after that first year or two, is there a decline? AMC just can't hold that development, so we'll see if it's really going to keep moving. And then also we'll look at it specifically on the rental side of it. So if the rental sides, if the prices start to go down on a lot of those units, if they aren't able to get the occupancy up there, and also if they're not able to get a residential component, meaning people who want to stay long-term as like be permanent residents, if they can't flip that into anything, I think that might be a sign that there may be a little bit of trouble on the horizon.
I think you're going to need to do something we call explain it to me like I'm five. So explain it to me like I'm five. What do you mean by first wave and second wave of occupancy?
Yeah, so every new development, when you have waves, so the first wave is typically when somebody's trying to open up a project. The Battery in Atlanta is a good example. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get as many people to occupy your place as possible, so that it doesn't have the common restrictions. You want to have more people in the place so it feels full. And so a lot of times new developments will do a lot of deals to make sure that people can get in there first. So you might have first month off of rent, or 1 or 2 months off, or 20% off rent for the first year, or something like that, to make sure that the renter side gets in. The reason why you want to have the renter side is because once you make that pitch to your homeowners, these are typically going to be your first-time homeowners, your people who want condos or townhomes and things like that. They don't necessarily want to move into a community that's empty, so a lot of developments will cut a lot of deals to make sure that that first wave is occupied. So the second wave, which will be your first-time homeowners, that they come in. And so once you have a full occupancy on the rental side, a full occupancy on the first-time homeowner side, then you can start maturing your developments and your plans from there.
King Williams, we always love having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Decatur Dish Show. We air on Atlanta News First Plus every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. To check us out, you can download the Atlanta News First Plus app on your phone or on your streaming device on your TV. For all the latest news from DeKalb County, visit Decaturish.com. And to become a paying supporter of Decaturish and support all the great work that we do, visit SupportYourLocalNews.com. With that, we hope you all have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.